Hey everybody, thanks so much for tuning in and watching the Arizona Youth Alive podcast. I'm so grateful that you would take time out of your day, out of your busy schedule, to be a part of this podcast and watch and hear what God is doing all across Arizona. So if you're wondering, it's your first time watching, if you're wondering what this podcast is all about, is we want to help you learn how to be a better leader, a better influence in your circle and around the people you're with on a regular basis. Why? It's because we believe that leadership is all about influence. If we can influence people better, we're leading better. So that's what this is all about. And so today, I have a special guest on today's episode, a good friend of mine, and someone who I think is really influencing change in a great way right here in our state of Arizona is my friend Zion Rempel. Zion, welcome.
So honored to be here. I'm excited.
Glad to have you be a part of our brand new podcast.
I love it. It's awesome.
So yeah, man. So why don't you give everybody, all the viewers at home, a snapshot of who you are, and let's get right into it.
Absolutely. I recently have discovered podcasts. I don't know. Must have been in the backseat, just not paying attention. But I recently have fallen in love with podcasts. So I'm so excited to be doing this. I feel like super special, like I'm becoming like a superstar or something, that I actually get to be in a podcast. So because I'm listening to them all the time.
So good.
But my name is Zion. I'm the associate pastor and creative pastor at 2911 Church in Tempe, Arizona.
Yes.
We've been around for about 4 years, which is super cool, a little over 4 years, and it's just been the most amazing journey ever. I'm married to Kirsten, who is our family pastor.
Oh, come on.
And,
shout out if you're watching, come on.
Mm-hmm. And then we just had a little boy who is about a year old, and so it's so
By the way,
fun.
did you know your son owns a hotel?
I did not know that.
He does.
He does.
Where was I? I was in Chandler yesterday.
Oh, yeah?
I think I was in Chandler yesterday. Was that Thursday yesterday? Yeah. So I was in Chandler yesterday, and we drove and we saw a Maddox hotel.
Wow. I have seen Maddox apartments on Gilbert Road, but I've never seen the hotel.
Maybe it was apartments.
Oh, well.
Because it was Gilbert Road. Because it was right after.
It was that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then that's
it's an apartment complex.
Yeah. Is he tithing?
He is already.
Good.
We've been making sure that's been happening right after that 10%. It's
Love that.
negotiable.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, the reason why I wanted you to come share today is because I think you've done something incredible in Arizona. Is my topic that I wanted to discuss with you is culture, or brand loyalty, if you will. I think you have done a great job of creating a culture in your church around the idea of worship, around the idea of just, I'm going to be bought into a clear vision. And there's an intangible atmosphere at 2911 when it comes to worship. Whether you're 15 or 50, there's people that are bought into that vision. And so kind of what we want to do is this, for youth leaders that are watching this, or for students who are starting a campus club at their school or leading something at their school, we really want to help them apply this idea of, how am I going to create vision? How am I going to create culture? And so this idea that culture it's basically an intangible atmosphere that makes people want to be a part of it.
That's right, yeah.
So how does a youth leader create a life-giving, healthy, enjoyable culture? Or something that I just keep going back to is brand loyalty. How do you create raving fans? Like, honestly, I believe that you've done here in Arizona. And so let me hear you through the lens of like LRS, the living room sessions, and from now. So how is it that what's culture to you, and how have you created culture?
I think something that's huge just right off the bat is, I think sometimes we misunderstand where culture begins and ends for us as churchgoers, and even as creating a community of culture within church and through church and ministry. And I would say that culture begins as early as seeing something on social media before they even walk on your premises. A lot of times we tend to focus a lot on like what happens when they get on your premises. Like how is your culture being seen and perceived from the person as you're standing there? But I think it begins even before that. When someone hears about whatever ministry, youth ministry, worship team, whatever it is, when they hear about you for the first time, how is it that they hear about you, and what is it that they see? What is it that is said? Is it something that's tangible? And so I would be committed to consistency in your culture, beginning with social media.
Yeah,
and it's so important. It's so important nowadays that you build a consistent representation of who you are, because that will be the preconceived notion that someone walks in with before they ever get there.
Yeah.
Whether or not they're bought into the vision before they ever meet you in person. It's just the way that culture is in bigger culture, the culture that we function underneath.
Yeah.
Where it really, I guess, flourishes from.
Yeah.
And so I would begin there.
Cool.
But then beyond that, I think that when it comes to branding, I think that sometimes we think that we have to create new and fresh all the time, and the pressure drives us to create very inconsistent representations of who we are and what we're doing. And I would challenge somebody to discover what it is that you do best. So what is it that is your strength? What is it that you feel as though like we can totally master this, and find a way to make that your culture and represent it really, really well. So going all the way back to the living room session, we started our community in a living room, and that could be perceived as a weakness, but we decided instead to make that our strength. Make that really a planned part of what we're doing, and not even that, but make it at the center of the culture that we were creating.
Absolutely.
So the album artwork was like a living room, had this painting, and it really all followed this synonymous consistency with what it meant to be in the living room.
Yeah.
I think it built a great foundation of branding and loyalty from the very get-go, because people felt as though when they were listening to it, they were sitting in a living room hearing like a worship set, and it really worked in our favor to really represent where we were as a church, but also from like a church branding standpoint, not give people an expectation that wasn't realistic. So when they walked in, they weren't like, oh, I thought this would be something different, because they heard and understood that we were in a living room session phase of our church's life and culture. And that then obviously transitioned to, when we found a place. And I don't know, I think that if you look at like the albums and even the single releases that have unfolded since, you can definitely see an evolution, of where we're at and what's happening and how we're doing things. But if you really look at like the fingerprints, it still has this consistent look, consistent color grading, even consistent, perspectives, consistent lyricism, consistent phrases that are thrown around, because those are the things that will create a culture that people can understand.
So language creates culture. Come on,
Absolutely.
I love that.
100%.
So right there, are you hearing that right there? Language creates culture. What are you speaking life into? So I think something that we do ourselves a disservice, and I think you've done this excellent, is we think for starting small, it can't be exciting.
Absolutely.
And I came from a church plant too, and this whole idea that you have to have all the proper accoutrements. You have to have the fog machines and the lights and what you guys have now, and it's awesome, and the building. But like culture begins with me believing in what I'm doing. And so if you want to create a life-giving, healthy culture, you can't be like, oh, we're going to be cool when we have this. We're going to be great when we have... No. What we have now is amazing.
Absolutely.
And you know why? Because we're going to speak life in that, and we're not going to allow negative...
Absolutely.
We're not going to allow negative speech to be around anything we're doing. Because why? This is God's vision for our lives, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we're not going to... So like for a student leading a campus club or a youth leader trying to create a healthy, thriving youth ministry, is they've got to understand, like, no, this is God's vision for my life. I'm not going to let anybody or anything, even my own self, speak negatively over God's vision for my life.
Absolutely. So, I think also too, when it comes to like the idea of language, why language is so important too is language is something that is tangible, that can be given to somebody else. And so something that we've really done within our worship ministry and also as a church as a whole, we can't rely on our head pastor and our worship team. Our worship ministry cannot rely on me as a creative pastor to relay all of the vision. There has to be some kind of tangible outlet where they can grasp and hold a piece of that vision on their own. And language is a huge way to do that. So we've really created a few phrases that really embody the things that we believe in, that are really easy to repeat, and we will say them all the time. I think I heard a podcast recently where someone was talking about advertising and advertisements, and that it takes us 7 times to see an advertisement before we actually ever register what is actually being seen. And if you translate that to a language perspective, someone has to hear something 7 different times in different scenarios for them to really understand and practically apply that to their life. And so things like one thing that we say is we are a culture that we innovate, we don't imitate.
Ooh,
and so we say that all the time. And now I love it because now, like, sometimes
people are repeating it back.
People are repeating it back or coming to tell me about it. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's exactly who we are. Or another thing that we say a lot is if you want to have a culture, you got to be the culture.
Yeah,
so be the one that steps out first. And those are just easy phrases that you can grab a hold of and repeat pretty often. For leaders and from a leadership standpoint, that can get irritating sometimes, because you might look at your team and be like, why do I keep having to repeat this and say this, and what's going on? But know that it's not for you.
Yeah.
It's for the team, and for the sake of the team, and for the translation of that language, so that other people can use it and repeat it back to you and understand what
I heard a pastor say once that if you think you have communicated the vision or communicated the culture too much, do it one more time.
Mm-hmm. 100%, yeah.
You can't say it enough. And so, for instance, like with our campus clubs, we want to launch a life-giving campus club, and we're not going to stop saying life-giving. And even if they are all, like, let's say we have 1,000 of them, they're all giving life to the community. That's still got to be the main proponent, because that's got to be something that's too. I love the fact that people at your church can say back to you the culture of the church. Yeah. So let me ask you this: with these last few minutes, we actually covered quite a bit. I'm really glad. But one thing that I want to get into is how, when it comes to building a culture, how much of your time is spent managing, how much of your time is spent making? Because I think we want this idea of, like, I'm going to make such an amazing experience for people that come to my club or my church or whatever. But a lot of times it's like, no, I'm managing the things that I don't want here. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah.
I understand that. I think that it's important in the making process to, like, understand where you sit in the culture building process, but also have individuals that you trust and know the overall culture of your community, the culture of the ministry that you're representing, that to help you build those things. Because what happens is, in the process of having that small group of people that you're sculpting culture with together and dreaming things out, they also have to buy into the culture, and they can represent with you. So it goes into the management portion. Already you're like 4 times ahead of where you would be, because there's 4 people that have been in on writing that culture other than just one person.
Right.
And unfortunately, I think we tend to put way too much power on one person's decision making in the culture writing process. But I would say that I spend more time not so much managing, but where the bulk of culture translation happens is through relationship. Because people want to be entrusted with a part in a culture and a piece of a culture, and that trust comes from a place of relationship. And so really spending time getting to know people, far more over trying to use them within the context of your ministry. People can never become a tool or asset to what you do. They have to be known by name and their story known by name.
Right.
So that's something that we really fight for within our ministry, is to really fight to protect the humanness in ministry, and not let a drummer become a drummer, but it's always Cody or Nate or Avery. And it's,
I love that.
A worship leader is never a worship leader. It is always Sam or Justice, or these are people in my life, and because I know them, I can absolutely entrust them with carrying culture,
right.
If that makes sense.
And it's created, as a byproduct, a culture of caring for people.
Absolutely.
Every time I go to 2911, I told my wife this, every single time we go to 2911, I always feel like a celebrity. No lie. I always
Because you are a celebrity.
No, but it's pretty fantastic every time I go there, because there is that ingrained culture. But I think something else that we have to understand when it comes to creating culture, culture becomes what you allow. So
that's good.
So
Yeah.
for like an Avery, you want to have a culture of one, leadership, worship leadership, and creativity and ownership. So for Avery, you say this is a student who gets it. I'm going to put him in front because this is the behavior we're gonna what's the phrase? We're going to showcase the behavior we want repeated.
Absolutely.
And then we're going to not allow the behavior we don't want repeated. So I think sometimes we forget sometimes how hard work it is to creating a healthy culture. So like these churches out there, these campus clubs out there, they're just killing it. People come in like, this is awesome, this feels great. Like, I go to 2911, it's energetic. Holy goodness, it's energetic. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But I think we think that's like, oh, that just happens.
Yeah. Well, and oftentimes what they do is they fail to see that our head pastor, Pastor Mark, is in the middle of what we call the worship pit, at the center of worship experience.
He's down front,
jumping around himself, and that has been the way it's been from the very, very beginning. And that is essentially
Pastor Mark, if you're watching, I love you.
But he set in motion a culture that he wanted to have, and so instead of waiting on somebody else to do it, he did it first.
Yeah, man,
he jumped in to do it first and to be it first. And in that process, there is risk. There's like a risk factor this entirely. And a huge plug to Avery, who's one of our primary worship leaders, and it's so cool that he wrote a song at the age of 14 that has now been produced. Is at heart of
Sweet
Marble
Surrender?
Mortar. No, he wrote Wild.
Okay.
And he actually did it as a fine art song, which is so cool. It was written out of the overflow of what God is doing in his life, and because he was empowered to understand the culture. What I love about this is just recently we were having a conversation, and I was telling him about something that was going on. Whenever he's like, "Oh, I've been working on this song," and he showed it to me, and I almost was frustrated because I felt like the Lord was trying to speak something to our community, and so I was starting to work on a song, and he beat me to it because he had been empowered so much so to understand the culture of who we are that now 16-year-old Avery was anticipating what the Holy Spirit was doing, and essentially beat me to it. Beat me to the craft of writing a song that spoke to the thing that I was feeling for our community, and we hadn't even had a conversation about it yet. And that's what happens when you take the risk of empowerment within culture building, is because suddenly now they start to carry out the culture within their own life, and within the vision of how they're following Jesus, and the translation of Jesus touching earth through their craft and through their life.
And it's deeper. It's deepened.
That works. I'm a lyricist.
His discipleship.
Absolutely.
Oh, by the way, earlier I described you as a walking poem.
I guess I'll take that.
It's fantastic.
I will take that.
I could talk with you about culture building for hours and hours, but we got like a minute and 56 seconds left. So what I want you to do, pitch your new album that just launched.
Yeah.
And where to find you on Instagram, where to find the church.
Yeah, absolutely. So Marble Mortar has just been released on...
Tell them right there.
Yep. Marble Mortar has just been released on Spotify, iTunes. I have it right here. I listen to it all the time. We've got Marble 1, or Volume 1 and Volume 2 as well. Make sure you check them out, because they are songs that I know you will experience Jesus through. And if nothing else, I pray that it just blesses you wherever you are. That one thing that has been consistently told about the album from different people that have evaluated and given it like ratings, because that's now a thing. They just said that it's such a great album to listen to and soak in, both congregationally and just in personally in your own life. And so I pray that whether these songs can bless you in a congregational setting or just in your personal life with Jesus, I hope and I pray that the Holy Spirit just totally you encounter him in a real personal way as you listen to these songs, because they were written from a very personal place.
Absolutely.
So
awesome. Well, Zion, we love you. Be sure that you go to iTunes, get the album. They have a documentary on YouTube, just 2911 Worship on YouTube. Get their documentary. So good. So fantastic.
Yeah.
They're a church of creatives. Saturday nights, 2 services. Sunday mornings, 2 services. Check them out. Zion Rempel on Instagram. Hit them up.
Also follow 2911 Worship on Instagram, because we've got some fun things in the working that we're really excited to be releasing here pretty soon. So you can be up today on all of the fun things that are in the future of 2911 Worship. Make sure you go there. So,
well, guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe.
So good.
Let's reach every student, every school. Love you guys.
say, Jesus, the answer is yes, before you even ask the question. That is a heart of obedience. That is a heart of willingness to trust that God has a better plan than anything you can ask or imagine. The answer is yes.